When Sideshow Collectibles did their 12 Days of Sideshow in early 2020, I talked about this figure in a video and said what a ripoff he's going to be. So in typical Mr. X fashion, I didn't just buy one, I bought two. To give back to you guys, the Extreme Channel is giving away this giant Goro statue from PCS for our 20,000 sub giveaway. If you want to know how to win this, I'll tell you a little bit later in this video. Hey, thanks for tuning in to check out the Royal Guard from Star Wars made by Sideshow Collectibles. Yes, this is their premium format. That's their fancy way to say he's 1/4 scale. Now, as I said in the intro, when they initially teased this, I was a little bit disappointed because if I recall, I think it was like the final tease. And I was looking at this figure like $500 for something that's essentially a stick and a piece of cloth. But I knew I had to have it. Now, kind of a spoiler in the review today, he's actually done really well. Is he worth the $500 or the $1,000? Because I actually purchased two, which I would absolutely love to show you. But even though I bought them at the same time, the other one got stuck on the other side of the country. So I plan to put them next to one of two Emperor Palpatine statues I actually own. The first is this throne statue by Sideshow Collectibles. That's where they're going to go for now. The second is this custom one I've showed you guys before, which will come sometime in 2021. If you want to see what those look like next to them, I actually just redid the Star Wars section, so go ahead and check out the Extreme Channel Facebook or Instagram page because I post exclusive photos on there. So we're going to do an Extreme review, and honestly, there's not a lot to review. You have a base, you have a red cloth, and some stuff underneath there. But this is kind of a quintessential piece if you have an Emperor statue. So we'll talk more about that in value, but let's start off with concept of this piece, which honestly, again, is pretty boring, but it's what you'd want in a Royal Guard. So if you're unfamiliar with who this character is and you've watched this long, you must really be stalking me. I like it. I did have a stalker once, actually, but she got locked in a mental institution. So the Royal Guards are from Star Wars, and specifically, they guard the Emperor, the person in charge of the Empire. And he's an evil guy. He uses black magic, or the dark side of the Force. But he's really not that badass. I mean, hell, I stole his chair from him. But these Royal Guards are kind of like that boss statue I recently reviewed. Everyone who likes Star Wars knows who they are, but they only had about 15 seconds of fame. Now, assumably, they have some superior fighting skills, even though we really didn't get to see that much of it, at least in Return of the Jedi, a little bit more in the prequels that they made later. And then even in the last trilogy, while it wasn't this type of guard, we saw some guards who guarded the new Emperor-type Snoke person. So on the base, we assume is the Death Star, or where we saw them in Return of the Jedi. They were guarding the Emperor in the Death Star, and it kind of has this spaceship vibe to it. Then as you move up, this is probably the most museum pose I've ever seen. It's a guard pose. This is all he does. That's his job. He just stands there and looks menacing. And I think they did a nice job with that. I actually like the fact that this isn't sculpted. He's holding his weapon towards his shoulder, kind of like what you would see a guard nowadays with a rifle or a gun. And he has his awesome mask. And I actually like the colors on this. We'll talk about that in the little section of paint and sculpt we're going to have. So even though this concept is boring as hell, it's exactly what you want. So really with concept for this guy, I'm kind of asking myself, what else would I want out of the concept? And there isn't anything at all. So I have to give the concept a 4 out of 5 on this. I'm not going to give it a 5 out of 5 because it's just kind of boring. Now the rest of the review is going to kind of follow the same format. But starting with design, let's look at the dimensions really quick. So the widest point is probably the front of the base. You have a little over 12 inches. And then the deepest point is 6.5. And then the tallest point, which is his weapon here, is right under 23.5 inches. So he doesn't take up a lot of room, which is great, because space is the enemy of us collectors. Let's go ahead and take a look at the unboxing and the assembly. As expected, the box was smaller than most statues I've been getting lately. It was pretty light too. It was one layer that consisted of a few different pieces. You can see it right here. So initially, when you saw me putting this robe on, I wasn't quite sure how it worked, but it actually works really well. It flows really well. I was kind of scared that there was going to be a big part of him showing. You saw what he looked like without the robe on during the unboxing and assembly. Design, I got to give it to him. Even though he doesn't have a real neck, he has kind of a crayon for a neck, it's a 4 out of 5 on the design as well. So now this is probably going to be the quickest paint and sculpt we've ever seen on a statue, but let's go ahead and dive in and check it out. So even this is going to be the shortest paint and sculpt ever. It's still going to be probably longer than I last in the bedroom. But let's look at the Death Star base. I like the colors on it. So you have this solid gray with almost some, it's not shading or shadowing, but elements of white or a lighter color in there. And I think it adds good effect to it. It doesn't look like it's damaged or scarred, but it just gives it a little bit of a variance so it's not quite as boring. Then it has the vents on the side. Now his cloak is a little thin, but the quality does seem nice. So I would say it's a little bit cheaper material. However, it still presents really well and looks really well. Looks really good. Sorry, I got distracted looking up the back of his dress here. Then you see the inside of it is kind of this purple color that matches more of a transition to the sculpted part of his dress right here. Now, while you can't see his elf shoes when the cloak is covering it, they look decent on the inside. Even if I'm looking at the statue like this, I'd never display it. It looks a lot better than I originally thought it would. Now, while you don't see a lot of his glove here, there is some decent sculpt to it. I like the fact that they just didn't put a stick figure on the inside. There's even some detail with the belt there and the way the robes flow, the sculpted robes. In my opinion, while I'm not usually a fan of fabric or mixed media, 100% the way to go with this piece. Now, regarding the weapon they're doing here, this is kind of a mix of like a taser and a lightsaber in a way. It looks good. The paint's really clean on it. There's some detail. It does have a little bit of a plastic feel to it when you're looking at it. And then really just moving to his portrait here, his helmet. Now, typically you're not going to see this type of reflection. I have these giant spotlights on it. But it has that awesome gloss and shine, and I think that really adds to the majestic part of, hey, this guy is in charge of a whole galaxy. These are his royal guards. And it looks kind of badass with that black visor. Looks much better without the lights shining on it, but it makes it pop. So overall, pretty impressed for what it is. All right, starting with the paint. Essentially, we have the base, his head, and his weapon. It's good. Like I said, I really like the shine. I think the base is done nicely. I guess we can count his arm a little bit like we talked about the inside here. I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the paint. And kind of the same format, what we can see of the sculpt, it's also a 4 out of 5. I mean, it's weird looking at a statue that doesn't have much going on, but I really like almost every part of it, which is a good transition into the value. Now, they made 1,250 of these. Now, my guess is they're going to have a hard time selling out because I would speculate that nobody or their mom would buy this as a standalone figure. They would buy it only as a side piece to a 1/4 scale Emperor statue. And honestly, there's not a lot of those out there. Sideshow did recently release this Mythos piece, but that's 1/5 scale, and that would look really weird next to this piece because this is more in the Death Star, and that one he's doing his Mary Poppins float over a sea of lava. So $500, I think the value is better than I thought it would initially be, not just because it's done well, but there's a little bit more to the figure than I initially thought. But with 1,250 of these made, and keep in mind, I think most people who can afford it at least will buy 2 if they can afford it. You kind of almost have to if you're going to have an Emperor. But I think the value is a 3 out of 5. I think I'll be lucky if I get my money back. I think down the road, if there's more Emperor statues made, then this value will increase a little bit. But I don't think it's necessarily as bad as I initially thought it was. Did you get that? All right, so does this have the X factor? Is it a 5 out of 5 statue? It's not. It's a secondary. It's not even a secondary character. It's a supporting character for someone else. But I like it. I'm very impressed by it. I guess because my expectations were really low, I like it a lot more. But I think the statue's a 4 out of 5 overall. I'm really impressed. I can't wait to get the second one. Right after this review, I'm going to jump over there, put them up there, and see what it looks like with just one, and then hopefully the other one comes in the next day or two. To win this Goro statue, first thing you got to do is make sure you've liked this video, you've actually subscribed to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. Second thing is leave a comment below and make sure it's a witty, entertaining, or funny comment. Because when we hit 20,000 subscribers, I'm going to pick a random video, and the comment that has the most likes on it will be the winner of this Goro statue. So make sure your comment is entertaining to others and entertaining to Mr. X. Because if I like it, I'm actually going to pin it to the tops to help you get more likes. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Is this worth getting if you have an Emperor statue? To me, it's kind of a must-have, kind of a no-brainer. It'll just really accentuate that Emperor more. But I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to hit that Mr. X picture to subscribe. Check out some of these other videos. Drop me a like on your way out, and I'm out of breath.